Meet the Ambassador, a program that highlights a friendly chat with the ambassador's impression on the kingdom. Meet the Ambassador with Dr. Tagreed Alsaraj and Bandar Asiri. Stay tuned on SRFM.
Each episode, we will informally talk with different ambassadors from around the world in Saudi Arabia. The purpose of the talk is to shed light on the ambassadors themselves living in Saudi and talk about any similarities and differences between our cultures. So our main focus will be on languages, culture, and a bit of storytelling. So stay tuned for Meet the Ambassadors on Saudi Radio. I want you to listen to this clip of music coming up next, so try to guess which country is our guest ambassador from. I hope you had a chance to listen to the music and guess which country our guest is from. On today's episode, we have the German ambassador to Saudi Arabia, His Excellence Yach Gano, is with us on the line. Hello, Ambassador. How are you doing today?
I'm very fine. Thank you, Dr. Tagreed. Thank you for including me in this program.
It's a pleasure to have you. Mr. Ambassador, this show focuses on language and culture, so we want to kick off our conversation today with a question of how many languages do you speak, Mr. Ambassador?
Well, of course, I speak one mother tongue, and then comes probably English, which I learned at school, but nowadays people use it a lot, and if you just watch international television, of course, you learn it much better. And I spent time in Britain with EBRD, which is the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, where I was an alternate executive director for a time, and I worked with the German embassy in London as well. So English is my second language. French used to be my second language because it was a major at school. But then I worked with a French car company for a while. But I never really did use it afterwards. So probably it's my fourth language now. But I also speak Spanish, and I spent time in Madrid with the embassy, and before coming to Saudi Arabia, I spent 4 years as a German ambassador to Peru. I lived in Lima.
So, but have you ever thought about picking up some Arabic?
Well, which is a major in my career. I'm now nearly looking back on 40 years with the diplomatic service. So I probably spent more time with issues concerning the Arab countries and the region, the Middle East, than with all other subjects in other countries. But unfortunately, I never learned it really good, with the exception of a few words which I picked up in Saudi Arabia. When I came here first in the 80s, I spent time as number 2 with our consulate general in Jeddah. I picked up a few words, and later on, from 2006 and 2008, I was head of the German mission in Ramallah with the Palestinian Authority.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, now I'm back here, and I'm still not speaking Arabic. I'm a little bit embarrassed here.
No, nothing
I think
embarrassing.
that's a wrong move. I should have done it. I know.
No, there's no right and wrong move. It's about languages and it's how you use it. So, like you said, you've learned French and it was your was it second language? Oh no, third language or so. But because you didn't use it, it now Spanish is now coming at the forefront. So language is very strange. If you don't use it, you lose it. So basically, it's a good chance that you're here now, so you can practice a little bit of more Arabic. But what's interesting is that you said you were here in Saudi in the 80s. Was that?
Yeah, that's right. From 85 to 88 in
So
Jeddah mainly.
Yeah, so this is very interesting, and this leads me to my next question: is that if you remember from the 80s when you came here, and when you were first assigned to Saudi, what was your expectation? And now again, when you came back into this, which year did you come here now to Saudi?
I came here in 2018.
2018. So there's a big difference.
2.5 years ago.
Yeah. So in the gap in between, what was the expectation? What's your impression of what has happened?
Well, first of all, I was not assigned to Saudi Arabia in 2018. I knew the country from the 80s, and when there was a vacancy here in Riyadh for the ambassadorial post, I applied, and it worked out. So I, of course, I knew the country from the 80s when it was still very much in a process of establishing itself. But even at that time, it had become modern with a new airport in Jeddah, for example, with a corniche which had been built. Development could be seen also at that time. But now I came to Riyadh, which is a different place from Jeddah. And of course, I had no idea when I came here in 2018 how modern the country had become, the construction of all the new infrastructure. So that is quite amazing. And nowadays, people speak a lot of digitalization. Mm-hmm. We do in Germany and Europe, and I was also astonished to which extent digital media are used. The Saudis who are tweeting all the time. So yes. I really had to adapt also to this sort of culture where this country has far advanced, and as many people are choosing the electronic media. So yes. that were some very interesting features for me, which impressed me.
Yeah, so there's a lot of change happening, and then major from the 80s to now. It's major changes. This is, and I think we have a lot to thank for our Vision 2030 that is pushing us even for more advancement, especially in the digital media or in the digital world in general. Let's go for a quick break. We will continue our talk with our guest ambassador after this. You're listening to SRFM Meet the Ambassadors program with Dr. Tagreed Alsaraj. We are continuing our talk with about culture and languages with our guest ambassador, His Excellence Yarik Ghanu from Germany. Welcome back, Ambassador.
I'm here. I am listening to you.
Thank you. I'm sure you're always busy with work, but did you get the chance to travel around Saudi and explore its different parts? You have a unique background since you've been here in the 80s, and now you're in 2021. So the changes and which places did you go to and what you saw the differences?
I've traveled as I see it, quite extensively in Saudi Arabia, and I've done so already in the 80s. I always like to tell the story when I first went to Madain Saleh in 1987. There was no road constructed from Al-Ula to the ancient sites of Hegra at that time, so you had to go on a desert trek. Now, of course, everything has been developed, but we thought traveling at that time was quite an experience because you could really discover things. But still nowadays, I like to go into the desert. So we are a group of friends, call ourselves the Desert Explorers, and we go out into the desert either on day trips or over the weekends. And recently, I've traveled, to the outer parts of the Rub al Khali, where to the sand dunes close to Shoiba, to the east. And that was very interesting. We had the plan to travel, a few kilometers just into the desert, but we even couldn't make it because the dunes were so high, so massive. We just traveled 10 kilometers and then we had to turn back. So that shows the vastness, and also that's not easy to travel in undiscovered territory. We were well equipped and we had a good guide leading us, so there was no danger involved. But still, it's the beauty of the country and the possibility to discover things here. And I think there is hardly any other where you just go out with a car with a four-wheel drive and you learn many things. It's the nature, it's desert, it's the mountains in the west, Hejaz, Azir. I've gone to all these places in the 80s, but now again we also traveled to the Neom region in the north 1.5 years ago. Gorgeous part of the country. I've learned diving in Saudi Arabia in 1985, so I now know the Red Sea and the reefs. So I could probably write a very fine book about possibilities for travelers in this country.
Yes, you could, and I would be your first reader because it sounds very adventurous. You've gone to places, and the experience you had from the 80s to now, that's a very interesting read. I really think that you should. I mean, I'm gonna push you to write this book because it's really interesting to see the different aspects of what was happening in the 80s and the places that you've been to and comparing them to now. So from all these different places that you've been to, which is considered your favorite in Saudi?
Single favorite one, that would be very difficult to say. As far as historical sites are concerned, I mean, it's probably Madain Saleh. If you look at the history and what it meant to people 2,000 years ago, at the crossroads of trade, so that shows, that tells you a lot what has gone on in this country and how civilization developed. But I love nature, so traveling around Madain Saleh and only looking at the rocks is very nice. But I also love the Red Sea, diving, snorkeling. It's another world when you go below the water and discover what the ocean and what the reefs are offering to you. Not touching, not fishing, just looking at it. It's marvelous. So that is very. This is something I like very much.
Well, because you've traveled a lot and you lived in many countries, some people, when they travel and to go to different cultures from their own, they sometimes go through something called culture shock. And if you look back to when you first came to live and work in Saudi, and that could be in the 80s, or if you want to see now in the 2018 when you came, since it's been a while, were there any stories that you can share with us that highlights the similarities or differences between our cultures that we can learn something from?
Well, when I came back to Saudi Arabia, you might have thought I should know the country a little better.
Mm-hmm.
And when in the first few days we came here, my wife and I, we went to one of the shopping centers here in Riyadh. And of course, you had the ladies there with the niqab.
Mm-hmm.
And we were looking for a specific shop. And we stood there in the first floor. And there was a lady receiving the people to the shopping mall, but with the niqab. And I thought, well, I cannot approach her and ask her, so I was at a loss. But she must have felt I was at a loss. So she approached me and spoke to me in very good English.
Mm-hmm.
And that told me the niqab does not mean that she does not want to have contact and she will not approach us. But my first impression was the lady with the niqab must not be approached by a Westerner.
Yes.
So I was wrong here.
Yeah.
So that is one little story. The other one is I met a lady half a year later maybe, and she was laughing at me.
Mm-hmm.
She did not wear a niqab, and but in a very nice way. And then she said, "Can't you recognize me?" And I said, "Well, I had a slight idea." And then I told her, "Yes, you could be this person." And then she said yes. And she was in a different surrounding, wearing no niqab, and I was not accustomed to see her face. I only knew her eyes.
Yes.
So,
and her voice, you would have recognized that.
The voice I knew a little. But that also told me you probably here in this country have much more ability to recognize people from their eyes, from their voice, from their movements.
Yes.
And we are rather fixated to the face. We need to see the face, and then we know who the person is. So those are cultural differences.
Yes.
You have to realize when you come to a different environment.
Yes, that is true. Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. We've taken a lot of your time, but we come to the end of the episode. But is there any last words that you would like to say?
Well, I think Saudi Arabia and Germany do have a lot in common nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
This is an oil-rich country, oil and gas-rich, which is based on hydrocarbons. But this country is moving to green technologies now, to green energy.
Mm-hmm.
And the Crown Prince has only made this very clear a few weeks ago.
Yes.
And the same is happening in Germany and Europe. So I think we do have a lot in common. And I see a vast field of cooperation here between two countries. And there is a lot to be done, to enhance this cooperation. Because one country alone cannot cope with the climate change, and I think we are and will be very good partners in this field.
Yes, I know we had the G20 last year, which I was part of the B20, and we've seen that there's a lot of collaboration, and hopefully there will be more. Green energy is one of the top priorities. So we look forward to working with you guys as well. Thank you, Mr. Ambassador, for being on this program. You were listening to Meet the Ambassadors program on SRFM. Our guest today was His Excellence Ambassador Yarek Rano from Germany. Thank you for listening, and until our next episode with a new guest ambassador, take care and goodbye.
Meet the Ambassador, a program that highlights a friendly chat with the ambassador's impression on the kingdom. Meet the Ambassador with Dr. Tagreed Alsaraj and Bandar Asiri. Stay tuned on SRFM.